Hey y'all, thanks for dropping in. It is Steve with SBL Games. On today's episode, we're going to cover a PS5 HDMI port replacement. So you're going to need your HDMI port replacement, obviously. You're going to need a Phillips head. We're going to need a T8. And I always recommend having an old toothbrush handy that you don't care about. Alright, so moving forward. First thing we need to do is get in this bad boy. The way you get in that is I have it to where the front is facing me. This version happens to be a disk drive version. So we'll need to pull up from here. While pushing force that way, the whole piece will pull up and off like so. Then we'll need to pull this up and off like so. This will come up and off. I've already kind of prepped it. And now that we're in that far, we could begin the actual work. So we want something to keep our screws in. A good thing worth noting or mentioning is that I'm going to turn the other light back on. The triangles or arrows or whatever you'd like to call them, these, when it's a full arrow, it's going to be the coarse thread, which there's more of. On the other hand, if it's a hollow arrow like this one, then that means that it's going to be one of the more like thin, like a finer thread. So that does help if you happen to forget. You could always take pictures too beforehand. This is something I honestly don't recommend doing yourself. It's definitely worth calling in a professional. If this is something similar to stuff you've done before, then you could probably follow along. But it's mostly for educational purposes. So now that we got those 4 screws out, we could pull that plate off. It's like a fan protector, I guess you could say, a shield. And we could take the fan out. That one is luckily clean, so we're not going to need to do much. If I remember, this guy has only had his unit for like a few months, and then one of his kids knocked it over and didn't tell him. It's like, I think it might be the HDMI. I looked at the back and I seen some damage around the HDMI and the housing, which is pretty common once HDMI damage occurs. And I was like, yeah, it's probably HDMI damage. You noticed this, damage to the housing? No, I didn't. And he's like, well, how do we find out? It's like, well, let's open it up. So I opened it all up right in front of him. And I put the board under the scope, and I took the tweezers, did the tweezer test, and I had 9 out of the 19 pins were not connected. Yeah, fun times. So this one might actually need jumpers. Hopefully not, but it might need them. And it's like rocking the whole table when I do that. Freaking PS5 is heavy. So pretty much just go all the way around, get all the black screws out. Get the one silver screw right there, that's what's holding the outer housing to the disk drive, likely for anti-vibrational purposes. Alright, so we got this disconnected on both hands. We got all the screws done. T8 screws, I should say. Now we're going to take our Phillips head. We're going to go ahead and unscrew this. This plate will come right out. Alright. And unscrew that. That whole thing comes out. And now this whole entire thing. Oh, I missed one screw. Yeah, there's 2 screws right by the disc driver here. Looks like I missed one. There we go. Alright, so now this whole thing will pull right up. I know there is like a little piece in there that oftentimes falls out. Try not to lose that piece. It does suck to lose. Alright, so if you have the disk drive version, first thing you want to do is press down on this and pull that out. Press down on this, pull that out. This piece is usually taped into place. I'm not sure why they did it differently this time, so we'll just set that to the side. You don't want to disconnect that cable. Disconnect these 2 antennas. Be very careful, they're delicate. I usually use pretty much use my fingertip. But this is disconnected, so you could pull that out too. Set that to the side. Disconnect this. Once we get this plate off, we could disconnect that last cable. But until then, just make a note of how this cable routes. Take a picture if needed. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you will need a soldering iron, obviously, in this. We are going to need a rework station. I use the Quick 871, or I'm sorry, what is it? 861 BW. Highly recommend, by the way. There we go. So once we get these all worked out, now we could go around and unscrew this plethora of screws. There's a lot, probably like 20 or 30 screws. I've never actually counted, but it's a lot. Let's go all the way around and unscrew them all. Take pictures if needed. Alright, so I've got pretty much all the screws out. One thing worth mentioning is to take a mental note of where the screws are not. Those are where the outer screws go in to hold the case down. And then also up here, if you have the disk drive version, then there's a black screw you want to remember that goes there. But once you get all those silver screws, and again, if you have the disk drive version, you'll want that black screw out, and this whole thing will pull up. I like to pull carefully up like that, because you want to reuse all that. You don't want to damage any of that. Alright, now we'll need to go back to the Phillips head, and we'll need to unscrew these 2 to get the heat clamp out. Set that to the side. Same thing with this. Set that to the side. Okay, now that that's a lot of the wind done, we could press this down and pull this out. Disconnect this cable. There we go. Alright, so now that all that is done, we could actually pull the entire board out. So I like to start from this side. Be very careful, take your time. There is going to be a lot of pressure, and you don't want to apply too much force. You could definitely cause damage or spill that liquid metal all over. It's not good. We don't want to touch that liquid metal at all. And that's another reason why this is more of a repair that should be done by a professional. Alright, so anyhow, we'll pull up on that. And then now that I got that part, I could go ahead and work my way towards this corner. In this corner, there's 2 prongs that the board connects to for power. That's why this fucking, there we go. Okay, so those 2 prongs there. But just overall, be careful. Don't want to fiddle around with anything right there or anything right there. I'm going to set this board to the side. There we go. Alright, now if you do have any overheating issues, you could pull out all these silver screws. Same thing like always, take pictures or make a note. where they go. Then on the other side, there's 2 black screws that go all the way through. You remove the beauty case on the other side the same way as the other one that I showed you. And then this whole thing will pull up. Just avoid doing anything to this area. And then clean out all those heat sinks. There's look clean, so I'm not going to fiddle with it. But I do like to mention that. Way to keep your system running smooth. Keep it all cleared out right there. Okay, so now that all that is done, we could actually come to the problem. Alright, so first things first, we're going to want to put some Flux. Man, this snap might not even need it. Yeah, more than half the pins I could see visibly are not connected. But we still usually want to get some low melt in here. We're going to just use our fine tip iron on it to get in there, because there's that little tiny capacitor, which I'm surprised is on there. There we go. So we'll want to get our low melt in there. And just while you're doing this, avoid touching that liquid metal. There we go. And also when you're in here, avoid getting that cap. You don't want to get that cap. Don't want to lose that cap. I actually stock them just because a lot of times when it's this damaged as this person's is, there's usually, that cap is usually gone on its own. There we go. Alright, so now that we've got all those covered in solder, I'm going to switch back to the chisel tip, my favorite. And we will go ahead and cover the post next. So we're going to go ahead and get the post holes covered now. We are going to want to reuse that piece too that I just pulled off. So Flux, of course. And we'll want to use some more low melt. And this time we just want to saturate those posts so that when we come in with the heat, all of the pins and the posts are going to get that solder nice and liquid so we could safely remove it. A lot of this is patience. You may need to sit there and soak it for, 20-30 seconds per post. Never want to try to rush jobs, especially not jobs like this, where they can quickly become the bane of your existence. Alright, Alright, so this side's almost pretty well covered. I'm trying to cheat a little and do both sides, so I might need to come back. Okay, that should be good. People are idiots out here. I don't know if you guys heard, but someone sounded like someone almost wrecked outside. Just want to make sure these are nice and soaked. Like I said earlier, it usually takes a while. Usually about 20-30 seconds per post. So I'll just try to be patient with that. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you are alerted when new videos are dropped. Try to drop videos at least once every few weeks. I'm trying to do a lot more. We are in the middle of trying to upgrade to a bigger shop, which will be much better. If we get this shop, it will be really awesome because we're going to actually have an arcade, which I feel the city needs. And not only will there be an arcade, but we're going to start stocking like game systems. We've been speaking with the company that makes the Retron 5, and we're going to probably start stocking a bunch of different versions of the Retron. So that's pretty neat. Going to be a lot of cool changes, just a lot of space, a lot of actual merchandise will now be, would then be available, because then we'd have the space to accommodate merchandise. Because right now we just have the office, so it's not really enough space to do very much with but the repairs. But we get this storefront, I believe it's either 1,000 or 1,200 square feet, something like that. So that will be able to accommodate a lot more. And then we could also have the tournaments. I want to start doing the tournaments. We've been talking about doing those, having prizes and stuff. And then doing raffles, raffling off stuff. Just kind of doing it up way bigger. Because then we will have the space. Really got to soak these in. And we're going to come with the heat. I'm kind of strange. I like to do 850 at 120. Just the whole way I do stuff is not always the best or recommended way, but it's what I do that works. So again, this video is mostly educational purposes. This is quite an advanced repair technically, especially with that stupid cap in the way. Most HDMI jobs aren't too difficult. A lot of them I could even do without a rework station. You just have to really work in there with the low mount, and it just takes a little more time. It is possible though. Definitely is possible. Alright, so that should be good enough. I'm going to go ahead and use the rework station. Like I said, I do 850 at 120. I wouldn't say it's recommended, but that's how I do it. Alright, so I just got it positioned to where the HDMI port is going to fall in the trash. So we'll let our rework station get up to temp. the Quick lives up to its name. It is quick, so we won't have to wait too long for that. Alright, so it's up to temp. It's usually a good idea to have some tweezers handy too, to kind of, I don't even want to use the word pull, but kind of more nudge the port to make sure it's ready to fall out. I never like to pull down, I like to nudge up. That way if it is loose, it'll just bump it closer to the pins. It won't be pulling away and possibly rip anything. As although we have the skills to do the jumpers and restore the connections for rip pads, we don't want to do anything that's going to cause rip pads. So if I worked it in enough, I don't think I did. Oh, I got proved wrong on that. Alright, so once that falls out, all we need to do is clear out these post holes. I want to add some Flux in there actually. If you're quick enough, a lot of times these will come out pretty easily after having it heated up like that. See? Came out nice and easy. Dang it. Someone told me that one wasn't going to clear up. Spent a little longer on it. Yeah, that one hole being a butthead. Also, a lot of people like to employ the solder sucker, like that little pump tool, pump action tool, or whatever you want to call it. I rarely use it. There's some tools I have that I just don't really use too much. I should start using it more. Trying to hold it on there for about 20 seconds or so. So I'm gonna have to stay focused on this one stupid post hole being cleared out. Yay! Alright, so now that all the post holes are cleared out, we're gonna go ahead and get it flipped over, clean off the pins, make sure there's no torn pads where the pins go, and then get the new port prepped so we could stick it on. Alright, so now we can go ahead and check out these where the pins go, the solder pads, and we got no lifted pads. That means we did good. And it looks like that cap is still there, so we did really good. Alright, so we're gonna add some, you guessed it, Flux. And we're just gonna clean up where the pins go, those solder pads. And what did I do with my C-source? There we go. So it usually helps to bend it like that. That way you don't burn your finger trying to do it. Alright, so now we could go ahead and clean that off and apply some fresh quality solder. And then we could get the new port prepped and on and get this job done and over with. Alright, so we're all cleaned up. Fine tip is usually better for this job for most people. I do things a bit differently, sometimes a bit strange. I like to use the chisel tip. Kind of saves me a little time from switching. Most of all, it's just because I do it for comfort. I'm comfortable with this iron when it's the chisel tip. I really like the chisel tip. And of course, not wanting to work well now. Well, this is sucky. Usually works a lot better. Not sure why it's not working well right now. My freaking Flux. It's like my Flux burnt out faster than normal. There we go. Still want to be kind of difficult. It sucks. Got plenty of freaking solder on there. Of course, since I'm cutting a video, doesn't want to go the way it looks like it took an all but one pad. Freaking A. And then it looks like we boogered up one of the posts, so we'll need to remove that as well. It's fine. It happens. In fact, it's better to be used to things not going according to plan, because that's usually what happens. Even if you are experienced. So yeah, there's this one friggin' pad that didn't take. Alright, I just gotta clean that up. And then we could go ahead and get the new port prepped. And on there. Looking good. Yeah, it's all looking good. Normally I check it in the scope, but it actually looks good to where I don't need to check it in the scope. Alright, so let's go ahead and prep the new port. And then we'll be able to get it on. Alright, we got our port prepped by tinning the pins and the posts. There's some residual flux on there. I like to leave it on there because we clean that all up. So as heat's applied, the flux will start to drip down and soak into there anyway. So let's see if we could just scoot this over. Scoot that over. Come on. Come on. Okay. So now we're gonna prep our handy dandy Rework Station. And I like to come from underneath and kind of Put it slightly up at an angle. Stuck. There we go. Should be good. Usually about 20 to 25 seconds is what I aim for. Alright, so I checked the pins under the scope, they are good. So now the port is basically tacked into place. So now we just need to secure these posts. We will want to make sure that the solder works its way all the way through to the other side and fills that entire hole for a maximum amount of strength and security. So I will likely follow up with the rework just to make sure that it filled those holes completely. We do prep the port because sometimes it works in our favor and we don't need to use the rework station to work it all the way in, but really varies from unit to unit. It's hard to say until we actually get down to it and start going for it. So. Aim for about 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds per post. All right. Just trying to make sure it goes all the way through to where we don't really have to use the station anymore. We shall see. Alright, those look good. Alright, so we cleaned up those, made them all nice and shiny, solid. Put that little protector piece back. Now we just got to do the tweezer test and reassemble. Alright, so it's time to tweezer test. I went ahead and checked. The solder did go all the way through the posts, so we're good there. As long as the as long as these pins check out and they pass the tweezer test, then we are good to go. We reassemble test and we should be good. So far, so good. Yeah, we're freaking solid, dude. Time to reassemble. Alright, so reassembly time. We'll want to take our chassis, which is what the board sits in, and we'll want to take our board, gently flip it over. You don't want to go flipping fast and sending metal flying everywhere. Okay, and that will go into place. And I realized that I forgot to put that back again. Come on. Freaking thing. There we go. Alright, so now we can go ahead and get this into place. And I don't like the lighting, but when I add this, well, I guess that helps. Let's see if I turn this off. No, then that's all dark. Oh well, I'll have to figure something out. But anyhow, we could go ahead and put the clamp back in. There we go. We could go ahead and plug the cables all back in. There's this big one, and then these two little ones here. Alright. Now we could put the heat shield back into place. So far, so good. And now we could put these plethora of screws back in. Then we'll need to reroute that cable back into place, those two cables, the antennas actually. That's what they are. And then we could put the disk drive back in. And then we could put the housing back on. And we are done. So if you have the disk drive version, you'll want to put that cable back in as well. Alright, so ready? Alright, so all the screws are in there. Now we just pretty much need to route this cable. We will want the white cable to be on the bottom. So basically we'll be facing you. Closest one to you, I guess, would be the easier way to put it. Oops. Come on. So they are labeled FW for the white cable and FB for, it's usually black. On the newer versions like this, it appears to be blue come across a few of them now that are blue. Another change I noticed is that on the heatsink, it's made of stainless steel instead of copper now, because copper costs more. Alright, so yeah, that all looks good. We got the cables reconnected. Go. Now we need to grab the disk drive, reconnect the disk drive. There we go. Thought I missed something for a second there. Alright, so now that we're that far, we could put the housing back on. Uh-oh, I think I did forget something. Did we put the... Yeah, so don't forget to put that large black screw on the far end here. That's what we almost forgot. Hopefully this is the one. No, that doesn't seem right. Crap. Where did I put it? Stick on the end. It's this one. Yeah. So I wanted to make a big deal of it. Don't forget, that's where that goes. That's where I almost forgot it myself. Alright, now we can put the housing on. And again, just make sure that that little pad doesn't fall out there. Once you get the top on, you can plug in the cables for the disk drive. And if you guys remember, we had that one silver screw to hold the disk drive to the housing. So we'll go ahead and put that one in. There we go. The fan goes back in. Plug in the fan. Tuck it all in. Make it look all pretty. Those are all secure as well, so I could put this beauty cover back on. There we go. We will want to put the fan shielding on. And now we'll want to do all the screws back. So the longest ones go in the two corners here. And most of them are going to be these shorter, coarse ones. Remember, the hollow triangles mean the fine thread. Oh, actually goes there. Then the shortest one goes right here. Which is this one. These two up here take the fine thread. There's also a fine thread that goes up here where the arrow is hollow. Just like these, the arrow is hollow. And one over here, again, where the arrow is hollow. All the rest are going to be the smaller coarse thread. just about wrapped up, y'all. Okay, now we could switch to our Phillips head to put this bad boy back in with that metal shield or metal O-ring, I guess. Sleeve, I don't know what you'd call it. Right now, a pain in the butt. There we go. And once that's screwed in all the way, we could go ahead and put this beauty cover back into place. It's for hard drive expansion, by the way, in case y'all were wondering. Then we could put that screw in. And we could put this back in. It's a shield of some sorts again. Come on. This goes on like so. And that's it. Time to reassemble, y'all. So some final notes before we boot this up is that the iron I had at 750. I use a Heiko. I believe it's I'll have to put it in the link in the description. It's DX 900 or something like that. Anyhow, let's go ahead and turn this on. Okay, TV's already recognizing it. And we're looking good. Alright, another satisfied SBL Games client. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. The Patreon is almost complete and we'll be launching soon. Thanks for dropping in, Steve with SBL Games.